who came from Prague to talk to us a little bit, I think, about symbolism.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you to all organizers for organizing such a beautiful and practical meeting as well, because the hands-on will be very useful to many of us who can't do any of such craft. What I'm going to address today is the reading of Beaker decoration motifs, and we as archaeologists, or many of us, know the Beakers by name. Almost all the Beakers in Europe we have seen, we have touched, and so on. But at the same time, we are sometimes still missing the real point of the Beaker decoration. 20 years ago, I was trying to explain some of the motifs on the associated pottery of Beaker period, and we can see the different motifs being attached to the handles of these pots. Some of them are being interpreted as female symbols with like breasts or nipples. Some of them like horns or mustaches, and some of them could be representing both male and female. That's the inverted Y letter. And what is quite interesting is that these, let's say, gendered motifs are actually appearing on pots associated with the specific gender category as it is represented in the barrier rights. So in this way, we possibly could describe the decoration as a gendered style of decoration, but we should rather focus on the decoration of bell beakers themselves. But we should start much earlier. This is one of the fascinating discoveries of the pot or the vessel from Brnočice, the funnel beaker exemplar, which shows very specific motifs that we know even later during the bell beaker period, but also in many different times of prehistory. So here you can see you can see the sign of water, sign of arable land or land divisions, as we would possibly expect the following system of agriculture, and then objects which are commonly interpreted as chariots, but they could be also houses. We can see already since the very early Neolithic, we can see some certain archetypes in the decoration motifs. You can actually see the wavy motif of possibly of water. You could also see the depiction of human beings, and you can see it in a rather explicit way, but also in a more formalized way, in a geometric shapes. But then we have to bear in mind that even after, and many centuries after the Beaker period, we can still find some of these motifs on, for example, late Bronze Age or even early Iron Age pottery, like, for example, on this possibly ceremonial dish or bowl, decorated with all those known motifs like rhomboids, the chest pattern, or the wavy line. Okay, so reading the Beaker motifs, when we study them, we have to bear in mind that majority of them are purely geometric motifs. We have no human or non-human depictions of figurines or as such, especially in the, let's say, central and eastern part of the distribution of the bell beaker phenomenon. And the the taboo is so strict that we almost can imagine something similar like in the Islamic art, which is basically preventing motifs which would be explicitly describing the figures of humans or animals. But there are also exceptions, such as the deer motifs, which in original presentation are actually below those beakers, but that doesn't matter. You probably know these beautiful depictions on the balls from Iberian Peninsula, but then also we have on rock art panels, we can find the depiction of human beings and also perhaps of some solar deities, as it is here from the Valcamonica, Osimo, and Chemo panels. And also when we look at the beakers, we can see a great attempt to fill the entire space of the beaker, the entire surface. So we could possibly see some kind of horror vacui, which is being filled in with the different motifs, with different references as well. And looking at these reconstructions of the beaker decoration, we have to bear in mind that all the patterns that you can see also in the other panels here are basically just a preparation for carrying the main painted or encrusted decoration paste. So the final image of the beakers are beakers with red, or let's say red or dark background with the white or very contrast motifs. So this is how we should see the beakers. The beaker motifs were very important as a sign of certain cultural identity, and we can find them even outside of the main distribution of bell beaker phenomenon. So the examples could be given from the Taršín cemetery in Malta, or another examples from the southern Baltic area, or Latvia, for example, the Lubani culture, as you can see on this picture. So let's start with the wavy line with the zigzags. Okay, we may agree that that could be a water. We also know this Egyptian hieroglyph saying water, and we still retain that shape in the letter W. So you can see some Egyptian inscriptions with the water sign repeatedly being used in different words, and you can see it also on our beaker pottery. We can see the water also on a ceremonial jug from Sziget Szent Miklós in Hungary, and also one of the recent interpretations is suggesting that these horns, which are attached to the handle, could be actually described or read in inverted way. Let's say the bottom of the jug up, and then it would create some kind of tree of life. Okay, so another motif, the chest motif, could be a representation of the arable land of earth. We can see these motifs in a different examples from starting in Iberian Peninsula, in Switzerland, in France, and also very near here in Moravia, in Šlapanice. And right in the top of this picture, you can see the evidence of the arable land from San Martin Corlean in Val d'Aosta, where it is still visible in the museum. Okay, so next to it are the rhomboid motifs, which we can very hardly interpret, but they could be also related to a depiction of land and farming. You can see it in different examples of bell beakers, but in the bottom corner, you can see it was throughout the Neolithic period. It was used also, for example, in this case of the global amphora culture. And also the rhomboids are a very important part of the dressing of the figural stelae from, for example, from Sion Petit Chasseur. Okay, so what are these triangle shapes? There are many, or throughout the Beaker studies, we got many names for these shapes and many ideas what they could be, and we can still hardly put our finger on the true meaning. Okay, so they are definitely not a clepsydra. You can't see the inscription down there. Okay, so this motif connected to let's say the ancient Greek water clock, that doesn't is not related to bell beaker motifs. It's not the double axe labris, known also from the ancient Greek prehistory. But we can assume that these shapes are representing human beings. There is a nice example of early Neolithic pottery from Apulia, from Grotta di San Candida, and you can quite clearly see the shape of rhomboids, but also shape of those triangles, depicting very explicitly depicting human beings, possibly even of different gender, male and female. And comparison, the same or similar motif on the Beaker pottery. Okay, this symbol is being connected to expressing the human beings also much later in the Hellenistic period. This is an example of a pitoi jar from Tbilisi, from Georgia. But also we can see a different depictions of human beings, perhaps of human faces, as the case of this kopush from Portugal. But also we can see maybe human faces and human bodies in different ceremonial vessels from Hungary, from the Chapel Island territory. So this is the tree of life, or the horns being connected with the ceremonial pot from Sigurd St. Miklos, and then also the chapel, very exceptional pot, which Andre Di Anna and Pastor have, Emilia Pastor have interpreted as a kind of person standing and praying. They assume there is the depiction of the moon and sun. Possibly I could see some ceremonial objects next to the standing person, and also on the top, but if you read it upside down, then just below the praying person, we can see a depiction of these triangles. Again, another human beings possibly taking part in the ceremony. Also, we should mention the beautiful key rings, the beautiful pendants from Iberian Peninsula, which are also depicting possibly some kind of ceremonial dress of human beings, and we can compare it to the stoneworks of Sion Petit Chasseur. And last but not least, the sun as the solar deity symbol being depicted on the gravestone, but also being depicted on a mysterious stone object from Yorkshire called the stone drum, but also being quite frequently depicted on the basis of bell beakers. So we can see, oh, sorry. Yeah, that tells me I should finish. And I am finishing, actually. Seeing these solar motifs, we can see it in the V-perforated antler bead on the left. We can see the beautiful golden plate from Ireland, both with crosses and the solar symbols. But we can also see it on a different bowls, beakers, and drinking cups, starting with the most beautiful depictions of encrusted, decorated bottoms, but also going as far as to very easily made cross on a bottom of course day-to-day cup. So perhaps it was important when having the feasting or any kind of ceremony that when these guys were drinking their whatever, beer, meat, wine, whatever, when they cheered ceremonially the beaker deities, they were actually showing up perhaps the main deity, which was the sun. And finally, you can see a sequence of the ornaments starting in the LBK early Neolithic pottery, going through these motifs, sometimes being described as Maltese crosses on the funnel beaker pottery, then the beaker rhomboids, and then the late Bronze Age, early Iron Age decoration of a similar sequence of symbols. When we see this, we have to emphasize that all these symbols could possibly have some archetypes and some original meaning, but throughout millennia, as it was used in the pottery and also in the different regions, in different cultural identity concepts, these motifs could lose their original meaning or gain a different meaning. But at the same time, we have to emphasize that they were so important in the human culture that they retained their meaning and spiritual meaning throughout the prehistory. And finally, I would like to draw your attention to a completely different period, to the Latin period and Latin decorative style, which was interpreted by Wenceslas Kruta as a development of the animal style, starting not from the animals, going towards the abstract motifs, but vice versa, starting with the abstract motifs and gradually gaining the shapes of animals as a kind of mannerism in this decoration. So I am not giving you any answers to these codes of beaker decoration motifs. However, there are many questions to be discussed and to be thought through when we are dealing with those beakers, because the beakers are carrying certain message. And that's all from me. Thank you very much for your attention.